Good evening, everyone. We're thrilled to have you join today's special presentation, Turn Back Time, Turn on Revenue, How to Launch a Longevity Offering in 30 Days. We'll share straightforward digital strategies designed to quickly integrate and market longevity services in your practice, setting the stage perfectly for additional revenue opportunities. Give me one sec. I just want to make sure my screen is being shared, and I don't think it is. There we are. Sorry about that. I'm Filip Kujalski, founder and president of Web2Med. And with more than 25 years of experience, our team has specialized in digital marketing solutions tailored specifically for healthcare providers. We've successfully helped numerous practices launch new services and consistently grow their patient base. Today, I'm joined by our valued partner, TA Sciences. After my portion of the presentation, they'll share how TA65, their clinically backed longevity supplement, can enhance your practice by opening an exciting new revenue stream. The demand for longevity-focused healthcare has surged dramatically in the last few years. Patients actively seek ways to extend health span, increase vitality, and improve quality of life. However, many clinics aren't yet capturing this growing interest effectively, missing substantial revenue opportunities. Today, we'll show you how easy it is to position your practice to meet this demand. Let's talk about websites. So your website will be your first and most critical marketing tool in launching your longevity services. Yet many practices struggle to effectively promote new offerings online. Here is how to optimize your site quickly and effectively to start booking longevity-focused consultations right away. Your website should clearly communicate the benefits of longevity solutions to your patients. Some of the key elements include clear, compelling descriptions of longevity treatments and supplements. And this is also going to be important for search engine optimization, which we'll talk about in a minute. You need strong calls to actions guiding visitors toward consultations. So book your appointment, that would be a basic one. You can have a little bit more in there, but goal is to making sure that you do guide them and push them to make that appointment. Don't leave them kind of hanging and trying to figure out what to do next. Make sure your website is optimized for mobile devices. Most everybody today is on their phone, sometimes a tablet, but best majority their phones. So make sure your website loads quickly on mobile devices. And then testimonials showcasing patient success, improved quality of life. All of those things are important. Optimizing these areas will rapidly increase patient bookings and accelerate your new service revenue. Next, let's talk about search engine optimization. This is a proven way to attract motivated, longevity-focused patients to your practice without relying on paid ads. Over 75% of potential longevity patients start their journey online. This could be researching things, looking at options, and ultimately looking for providers such as yourselves as well. Search engine optimization ensures your practice is their first choice. Key actions to make sure you have full visibility and you're in front of them is making sure to optimize your Google business profile. This is key for local searches. Create dedicated pages for longevity-focused services. So, like I mentioned in the website section, this is really key. If you're not talking about a specific treatment option or a condition that you're treating, then Google will not be able to find that information, obviously, because it's not there, and connect those patients with you. It's really, really important. And I typically recommend having a page that's authoritative and kind of exhaustive, where 750 words is kind of minimum, and having it dedicated to each treatment or each condition. So you don't want to have, let's say, 5 or 6 or 10 different treatment options on one page. You really need to have a dedicated one to put kind of that structured so they're cross-linked. You want to put a page ahead of it, like a pillar page maybe, where it links to all the different treatments. So content strategy-wise, again, first and foremost, making sure it's engaging, informative, and dedicated for each topic. And then also what's important for the websites and the visitors, it's important for search engines, making sure that website is fast loading, mobile optimized. Google is checking for that quite heavily these days. And basically implementing these steps makes your practice visible to motivated patients searching for these longevity solutions. Another component that I think is important is social media, but this isn't just about likes. It's about building real connections and trust. So let's see how your practice can effectively leverage this. Now, good part of it is content, and there are different types of content a practice should develop to basically have that real connection and build trust. So educational posts highlighting longevity and wellness benefits. One of it, could be if you develop, let's say, blog posts for your website, you could have a corresponding social media post to highlight that, or it could be just on specific services and treatment options. Another way is if you do add new modality to your practice, for example, TA65, you do want to tell everybody on social media as well, that just another channel that they can see. And if they came to your website, then they see you on social media and maybe get an email from you. Those are different touch points. It just builds one on top of each other. You also want to have authentic behind the scenes insights. That's kind of what people want to see, right? It could be short videos, it could be a narrative, but I think those behind the scenes insights, they're basically best if you put it in short video format. Also, videos explaining the benefits of these longevity treatments, I think, are good. And I think a lot of providers don't really get to do that because they think it's really complicated. But my advice is basically use your camera from your cell phone, invest into fairly inexpensive lapel mic, because if they cannot hear you, then that message is lost. If they cannot see you, not as important, don't need to have a Hollywood production, but making sure they can hear you well, I think, is very important. And look at that camera as if that was a patient sitting in front of you. And you know how to talk to your patients, and putting those short videos, I think the first one takes maybe 5 hours because you're going to prepare, but the next one is going to take half of that time, and the next one after that is going to half of that time. So it really helps to build that content, and it becomes quite easy once you do it. And also doing that with patients as well, right? Real testimonials, patient success stories, put them on social media, but you can also put them on your website. All of those things do work together. And then being regular about it, right? It's not set it and forget it type of a thing. Just having a Facebook page or an Instagram page will not have an engagement. It's really about frequently sharing valuable content. This really helps your practice becomes the go-to authority on longevity in your community. Lastly, let's explore email marketing. This is your secret weapon to engage patients and rapidly grow your longevity offering. I think there's many different components, but these are different ideas and key things that I think all practices should include. So educational sequences introducing longevity benefits, and for example, TA65. Another way with email, you can set up automated follow-up emails encouraging patients to book consultations, exclusive intro offers, promotions. This kind of drives that loyalty and repeat visits. And if you're not building an email list right now, make sure you do. I think that has changed over the last 10 years greatly. When I used to ask at conferences how many doctors had their email list, I would have half of the people raise their hand. It changed quite a bit. Many of you use EMR systems. You can, for the most part, easily export that email list. And I think for most practices, this is really under leveraged. I think you can really, really do more because, simply targeted emails quickly build interest. They drive appointments. They maximize your longevity revenue potential. So far we've covered how to attract these longevity-focused patients, building a strong website, ranking on Google, engaging on social, following up through email. Let's shift this conversation from attracting patients to monetizing that attention in a way that feels natural, clinical, patient first. Specifically, let's talk how to market supplements like TE65 from your practice. And supplements aren't just an upsell, they're an extension of care. When offered with intention, they improve outcomes, they deepen trust, create recurring revenue stream. Here's how to do it well. Prescribe, don't pitch. When you present supplements as a natural extension of personalized care, not as a side offer, patients understand the value and take it seriously. Lead with education. Focus on the science and how it fits into their care journey. For example, with TE65, you can explain how it helps support cellular health by activating telomerase and safely lengthening telomeres, something patients are already seeking in the context of longevity. Another thing, make it visible. Don't let supplements live in a drawer. Have TE65 and other supplements displayed where consultations or checkout happens. Visibility sparks curiosity and it encourages follow-up questions. And also support it with communication. Reinforce recommendations after the visit through email or text. That post-visit follow-up, like, hey, here's more what we've discussed on and how you can how it can benefit you. I think it makes all the difference. And then focus on alignment, not volume. T65 is an ideal first supplement for a longevity practice. It's premium, it's clinically validated, and aligned with the same values your patients already buy into, right? Proactive, evidence-based, age-defying care. So yes, this becomes a revenue stream, but it's also a trust-building tool. You're offering solutions, right, to your patients, the solutions that patients actually want and need. And if you'd like a deeper dive into best practices for integrating supplements into your care model, go to our website, web2med.com, and check out the latest blog that dives a little bit deeper and offers some greater insight into this. To sum it up, here's your straightforward digital growth checklist. So optimize your website specifically for longevity offerings, invest in search engine optimization, strategically use social media to build awareness and credibility, and use targeted email marketing campaigns to rapidly generate consultations. And finally, don't overlook supplements. Integrating science-backed options like TE65 not only enhances patient outcomes, but creates a trusted and recurring revenue stream. Following this checklist ensures a successful and profitable longevity launch. And as a special thank you for attending today, we're offering a complimentary 30-minute digital marketing strategy session. We'll identify your unique growth opportunities that's tailored specifically for you and your practice, and also focus on launching longevity services in your practice. And also we'll be offering exclusive attendee-only pricing on our proven marketing solutions, carefully designed to boost your patient bookings and retention. Simply go to web2med.com/growth to schedule your session and start growing your practice. By the way, there is more. TE Sciences has also a special offer at TE65 available to today's attendees. So stick around to the end of the presentation to hear all the details. With that in mind, I'm now excited to introduce our trusted partner, TE Sciences, renowned for their groundbreaking research and clinically proven supplement TE65. They offer a powerful longevity solution proven to help patients turn back time and practices boost their bottom line. Please welcome Sebastian Conti, Director of Sales and Marketing at TE Sciences, where his work with TE65 has redefined how we approach aging at the DNA level. Sebastian not only drives growth, but pioneers conversations around telomeres, DNA repair, and cellular resilience, transforming the way practitioners and patients understand and engage with longevity science. TE Science's commitment to evidence-based progress and the role of telomeres and cellular vitality makes the company a key figure in today's anti-aging revolution. Sebastian will guide you through how easily you can integrate TE65 into your practice and start generating additional revenue within just 30 days. Take it away, Sebastian.
Thanks, Philip. I appreciate it. Can you hear me okay? I'm make sure
Yep. I think we can hear you loud and clear.
All right, awesome. So I'm going to head over to, let's see, the first slide here. I think you already got it going. So I'm going to talk a little bit about telomeres and longevity and TA65, and of course, like Philip said, practice implementation. But I'm going to go into it first, a little bit about the product, how it works, and why it's important. So when you think about aging, you probably think about it being multifaceted. We all know it's a continuous process that unfolds over time. So it's really the bedrock upon which most of the major causes of death occur. And in the slide here, you can see you've got the whole progression of aging. We really want to try to keep from getting to the point where we have a lack of health span, right? We want to be as healthy as possible until our final days. So go to the next slide, Philip. So most of you are familiar with the hallmarks of aging, and today I'm going to focus on telomere attrition and how it affects aging systems and what we can do about it. And telomere attrition actually affects many of the hallmarks of aging, and since these are some of the most prominent ones that we'll discuss today in this presentation. Get the next one. So how do telomeres work? I don't know if any of you had seen this graphic or heard of the Sheltering complex, but you can see the double-stranded DNA coming off the chromosomes and eventually turning into a single strand of DNA made up of TTA-GGG. That's the amino acid sequence that actually builds the telomere. The single-stranded DNA loops around at the end to form the telomere end cap of our DNA, which is protected by the Sheltering complex itself. Sheltering is a specialized protein that binds to telomeres, and it plays a crucial role in maintaining telomere integrity and length regulation. And really what it does is it creates a T-loop structure that prevents the recognition of your telomeres as DNA damage. That's important because obviously as this process breaks down and you don't have this occurring, that's where we get the baseline of where cells start mutating and causing all kinds of other problems, giving off inflammatory cytokines, et cetera. So, in addition, Sheltering prevents inappropriate repair and fusion of the chromosome ends, which can lead to genomic instability and cancer overall. So there's another thing called the end replication problem. So when a cell divides each time, the telomeres shorten because of the incomplete replication of that linear strand of DNA we just talked about, that TTA-GGD. To circumvent this telomeric loss, Sheltering actually recruits telomerase. And what that does is that elongates that single-stranded overhang by the addition of telomeric repeats. So you can see where I'm going with this. Our product it upregulates what's called TERT. I'll go into this a little later, which naturally creates this process to occur. It's very mild and transient. TA65 helps promote this process in the cells. So we'll go to the next slide. I think it's unequivocally established that over a lifetime, telomere length decreases for the majority of us. We're all born with anywhere from about 8 to 15,000 kilobase pairs of telomeres at birth, and roughly 50 base pairs are lost during each cell division. Most age-associated shortening occurs during rapid somatic cell expansion. So if you look at that graph, it's reflected during the fastest growth period from birth through puberty up to around 20 years of age. You see that sharper dip occurring there. Telomere length is mainly affected by two processes in particular. Cellular replication, so each time that cell divides, it loses telomere length, and then oxidative stress, which occurs when the body has too many free radicals and not enough antioxidants to neutralize them. So we touched on the end replication problem in the last slide, if you remember me talking about Sheltering complex and how it helps with the end replication issue. In the end, what helps telomeres stay maintained or lengthened is telomerase. You need telomerase, and this is exactly what TA65 does. It transiently activates telomerase to help maintain or lengthen telomeres. The next slide. Now, we all have differing telomere attrition rates that can be tied back to many different aspects of health, genetics, lifestyle, day-to-day stress. There's a lot of factors that affect how fast telomeres degrade. Other things such as, and I'll touch on this a little later, if you've heard of cytomegalovirus, CMV, it's an asymptomatic herpes, herpes 5, that we, by the time we're 40 years old in the US, it's really a coin toss whether or not you're CMV positive. This can also really significantly affect telomere length and show a high senescent cell load as we get older. But in this graph, Where health and disease are differentiated at the bottom left, the lower your telomere length, the higher probability you have towards mortality. So this is more important. Your telomeres are a big indicator of your statistical, a statistical increase in you having a higher mortality rate if they're short. So if you have a shorter average. So when telomere attrition rate is high, we see faster aging. And when we slow that down, maintain or improve telomere attrition rates, we actually see a significant improvement in our aging process. And this has been shown in many, many different studies just on looking at telomere biology, telomerase activation. So, we're looking at, what causes the difference and is it malleable and is it important? We know that telomeres are malleable. Obviously, we know it's important. And you understand the difference now that you want to maintain a healthy telomere average. Next slide. So let's put it into a little bit of perspective here. We're going to do some comparisons. We're looking at differing telomere shortening rates amongst other mammals and birds. And humans are in this slide. So in the study, you see humans have the lowest on average shortening rate of about 50 to 70 base pairs per year. You look at mice, and they have the highest telomere attrition rate per year of around 7,000 base pairs. Now, not all animals are born with the same amount of telomeres, which is fairly obvious. But what you probably didn't know is that mice are born, for example, with anywhere from 50,000 to 150,000 kilobase pairs. They simply have a much higher degradation rate than any other animal, which is likely due to the high level of stress that they live under to survive. Humans on the other end of that spectrum, we live with a much higher level of abundance and safety and comfort, contributing to our ability to live longer. Plus, advances in medical, care and all that help with mitigation of disease as well. So our average lifespan of our species is prolonged. Go to the next slide. Show you another study. This is just talking about understanding why telomerase and telomere length are so important. In this study, they looked at telomere length of over 64,000 individuals. This is not product specific. It's just in regards to correlation to health. And it correlated it to the hazard risk of having a health event and all-cause mortality. You'll see in the top two telomere length deciles, the hazard ratio stayed around 1, which meant they were much less likely to encounter a major health event or death compared to the lower tiers in this cohort. So for this and the lower telomere length, you see these risk factors are actually increased by almost 70%. So you see the importance again of maintaining a healthy telomere average. Next slide. So this was the first time in history showing age reversal in a mammal. This is back in 2011, and the results were really unexpected. The researchers were actually expecting a slowing or a stabilization of the aging process, and instead there's a dramatic reversal in the signs and symptoms of aging with telomerase activation. You see the items here, it changed old mice back to young. Sorry there. Well, 33% improvement in telomere length. Let me see if we can go back just one, Philip, to get some of the bullets here. That's all right. So overall, so Ron DePinto, who was head or he's one of the big researchers here at MD Anderson Cancer Center in Houston. At the end of this study, he said, when you look at all the data, he actually was anticipating that you weren't going to see a reversal in aging mice. He thought that the mice were actually going to have a higher incidence of cancer because they were going to be turning on telomerase after shutting it off in a knockout mouse. And his comment at the end of this study said, if you look at all the data together, you walk away that looking at the loss of telomerase is so important, that such an important instigator of the aging process that it's that important that we need to maintain healthy telomere average. And this was all accomplished by activating telomerase. And so in this study, this is where things kind of really turned around after the 2009 Nobel Prize was awarded to Elizabeth Blackburn for her research in telomere biology. This 2011 study kind of showed that telomere science was really about to rapidly change the medical landscape because they were learning a lot about, well, they didn't know, was this the fountain of youth? So next slide. Looking at TA65. So it's the only proven commercially available telomerase activation supplement on the market right now. And I say only proven because right at the moment, no one has been able to prove that they can lengthen telomeres in animal models or in humans in any published clinical data and much less in double-blind placebo-controlled data. I'm going to go through touch on a couple of the studies just to show viability of TA65. But where does it come from? So we have a patented extraction process that we bought the rights to some time ago, back from a company called General Corporation in 2002. And we didn't produce the method to get this molecule as pure and bioavailable as it is to create telomerase activation. But we bought the rights to that. We created a supplement from it and launched TA65 in 2007. So it's still the only product right now that's been proven through scientific literature to do what it does, using the product in the studies. Next slide. So for years, TA Science has had data showing that it activated telomerase and lengthened telomeres in humans. But this study was particularly great for us. It was the first and only double-blind placebo-controlled randomized trial to show telomere lengthening in humans with a supplement. And as you can see in the TA65 group, we increased telomere length at each 3-month measured interval, and we did this for a full year. So, and what's even more interesting aspect of this study is that all the participants had to be CMV positive. And I touched on this earlier, which is cytomegalovirus. And once again, CMV is asymptomatic. It's herpes 5. It creates a much higher senescent cell load and a slow degradation of the immune system over time. So really, people that are CMV positives tend to have an issue as they get older in life. Their immune system doesn't have the chance to recover and rebuild, especially after things like novel viruses hit these types of individuals. It also depletes your naive T cell reserve, which we certainly need that over time to help fight off those novel viruses. So a CMV positive patient's telomere loss is about an average of 2 times that of a non-CMV individual. And we wanted to see in this study, we only used a more complex CMV patient to see if we could actually reverse their telomere degradation rates with TA65. And we did this with tremendous results. So you can see here where our kilobase pair improvement was shown. Let's go to the next slide. I want to touch on another double-blind placebo study that we did. This was a 500-patient study. It was focused on immune. So we proved the double-blinded concept that we lengthened telomeres in humans. And what we did here is we took 500 patients and we dosed them in a 5-arm study. So we had a 100, 250, 500 unit dose study. Those were QD, single-day dosing, and a 250 BID dose, twice-a-day dosing of that. And then we had a placebo group. And we looked at the number of percentage of were we going to be able to specifically reduce the CD28 cytotoxic senescent T cells, and what number was that going to bring at each dose, how much reduction was going to take place. And then also, are we going to be able to actually rebuild that immune system? Can we add new naive T cell reserves back looking at CD95s? And we did this through a 9-month trial. We did this with an IRB that we have with UCLA. Let's go to the next slide. Go to talk a little bit more about this study. So at every dose in this study, this is what's interesting. So even at the lowest dose of TA65, specifically for immune improvement, we had around a 21 to 20% reduction in those senescent cytotoxic T cells, those CD28 cells. For immune rejuvenation overall, you see that 10 per 10, it's a 10 to 12% increase actually as an average in naive suppressor cell numbers. And we want that. That's rebuilding that naive T cell reserve. And then the CMV patients was even more prominent. You saw a 15% increase there. So in a 13% increase in the non-CMV individuals. So when you have people saying that they have a senolytic or their product is a senolytic, one of the questions I've asked of certain folks is, we know that certain things reduce inflammation. We get it. But what are they measuring? What senescent cell marker are they measuring? And are they actually using their product in studies and clinical data? Or are they just saying, I have this extract, and if you look at these studies, this extract on its own can reduce senescence or can reduce inflammation. But the question really is, are they using their product in that study? And I think this is where another one where we really shined to show such. Next slide. I wanted to highlight another hallmark study done on telomeres by Dr. Michael Fossel. If you're familiar with Dr. Fossel, he's very big in the world of telomere biology. He's a PhD and an MD. He has a company called Telocyte. They're really working on utilizing and showing the science of telomerase activation in other methods that they're using to help fight or combat Alzheimer's or dementia or even reverse it. So they just got funded for their FDA trials and excited to see what the results are of that. He's got a new book coming out as well. But Dr. Fossil back in 2012 wanted to show the importance of maintaining healthy telomere lengths. So he showed how telomeres could be used as a biomarker for aging and age-related disease. Go to the next slide. So what Dr. Fossil showed in his data was the correlation of telomere length to incidence of specific diseases. In his first chart, he showed how being in the lower percentile telomere length led to a 3.5-fold increase of having heart disease. So you can see here already, you don't want to be in the lower quartile, lower percentile of telomere average length for your age and sex. Slide. So we went further in the study to address cancer incidence, and it's pretty amazing because you see the correlation of cancer incidence. It's 22.5 times higher when you have a higher percentage of short telomeres. Remember, we do not want a higher percentage of short telomeres. We want a healthy average of longer telomere length for our age. So even at an average telomere length in this case, though, you see the incidence of cancer is still 14.2 times higher in human data here. Next slide. It then showed the overall mortality due to cancer. And once again, if you're lingering in the lower percentile telomere length, it's not a great statistic for longevity. This is why we believe it's important to not only measure your telomeres, but you want to maintain them with lifestyle, supplements, and other modalities. There's a number of things you can do. I'll show you some biostacking components that can really work with TA65. It's why I'm here talking to you about the product itself and the benefits it provides. Next slide. Not to beat a dead horse, but I wanted to go back to something that we were all so familiar with when talking about COVID and its correlation to telomere length. There was a lot of data that came out post-COVID, ironically, in the years to follow, showing how telomere length and immune health really played a role in how people responded to COVID. And this graphic pretty much says it all for how telomeres play a role in the body's ability to combat novel viruses. Remember, that spike protein, our body wasn't familiar with seeing that before. So at the top, you see where the individual has long telomeres. And let me start here. At the very bottom, you see that colored chart where the intensity levels go from blue, green to red, right? The intensity in red is high, the blue intensity level is low. So if you go back up to the top, you look at the long telomeres individual, the T cell response, which is what you want, it was intense. The viral clearance was a lot easier to be had and therefore the result was mild COVID-19. You didn't have a very strong cytokine release when you were having long telomeres. In the individual with short telomeres, you see that T cell response was dampened. The viral clearance was also not very responsive, but you see an increased intensity in that innate immune response, creating a cytokine storm, creating all the issues that you see. You wonder why some individuals seemingly healthy and had complications with COVID. This is a big piece of why it was, and it had a lot to do with the naive T cell suppression that was occurring with individuals with a low telomere average length. Next slide. So the company, as I mentioned, has been around since 2002. 23 years of proven telomerase activation, and now 12 published clinical studies, 5 double-blind placebo-controlled trials. These are all human trial data. The double-blinded studies are. Next slide. And I don't know, what you know about TA65 in regards to, how do we produce it, but what sets it apart in products that claim they lengthen telomeres act as a potent senolytic? We're still the only supplement proven to safely lengthen telomeres and reduce senescence in double-blinded human trials. We do, everything to GMP, part of the Natural Products Association, and USP. So everything is done at the highest level of purity, and it's all done here in the United States, just to be clear. Next slide. We also received GRAS certification. This is a certification that's filed with the FDA that allows us to be deemed as a medical food. To receive GRAS, you have to submit a tremendous amount of study data over the course of time to prove that you're safe and effective. And it's not just easily handed out to any supplement. So an industry wanting to use a new ingredient, they have to perform a lot of rigorous scientific safety assessments. They have to gain a safety consensus from a non-biased panel and prepare and submit a final report to notify the US FDA that an ingredient meets this certification. So we were proud of this. It proved a lot. And I think even with supplements that are coming out on the market today, this is something that I think really stands behind a product that puts its money where its mouth is. Next slide. So how to stack TA65? There's a lot of things you can do. Obviously TA65 is not a silver bullet, but on your basics, we all know that sleep, a healthy diet, intermittent fasting to help clear out some oxidative stress, movement, meditation are all going to be beneficial for you. When you want to start adding this in with other, supplement or modalities, glutathione, I think a tremendous complement to TA65 is hyperbaric oxygen therapy. The main reason why is because you're helping to, you're getting some telomerase expression with HBOT, but it's hard to maintain or achieve that unless you're going through multiple sessions. And TA65 can complement that, whereas you can do a nice, just maintenance on health with HBOT. Nitric oxide is another one that goes beautifully with this. And one of the doctors that's co-authored 4 of our studies, Dr. Joseph Raphael, a lot of you have heard of him. He's been in integrated medicine forever, done a lot of bioidentical hormone therapy, and he combines TA65 with his bioidentical hormone program. He puts almost every patient on it. Another gentleman named Ron Rothenberg, Dr. Ron Rothenberg, does the same thing with us. So you can see here what can be offered. We have specials, of course. Next slide. We'll go through those a little bit, and I'll actually send you some information in an email for those that registered for the webinar. This way you can dive in, because we do have several products that we offer that are all the same technically in regards to the molecule, but really it's an oral supplement you take daily to lengthen telomeres. And I'll touch on this too while we're at it. Whenever you think about who do I introduce this to from a patient standpoint? What am I doing to, to help people understand, is TA65 for me? This is one of the things that I talk about. In what age would somebody want to use TA65? So when you think about that, if you look at a patient, we're all getting telomere attrition as we get older. So I'll start with, in the younger age category, people in their 20s who are high intensity athletic performers, football players, etc. They're going through a recovery process. They're rebuilding the body. They're recovering from hits, each week, or high intensity exercise, and they have to give themselves a day of rest. Every time that process occurs, there's cellular replication is speeding up to go through the healing process of the body. Just as another example, you probably don't hear about many football players that make it to be centurions. And, a lot of this is the aging process that occurs from the wear and tear. So for individuals that are in a performance aspect like that are younger, it's wonderful for them. It's great for recovery. It's a natural product. It doesn't conflict with any type of testing or is illegal for use in any way. As you get older, when you look at people with, high levels of stress, things like that, TA65 can be a big part of it. I would recommend looking at someone's immune panel, their telomere length in general, and you determine right away if they're a candidate. If they're CMV positive, you can get an IgG titer for cheap from either LabCorp or Quest just on its own. If they're CMV positive through that IgG titer, then TA65 is a wonderful candidate to help assist with dealing with that CMV. And to reiterate, it's not a treatment or a cure. It's a supplement. But at the end of the day, in published clinical data, it has a lot of benefit to those that are CMV positive, is what we've seen in the data. I'm going to send the link to all our studies, to a lot of the information that we have in other webinars, and a lot of the webinars that are being presented to you by physicians, give you a little bit more insight. And with that, like I said, you'll see some specials. And I think, really see if there's any other questions that popped up that I was not able to look at while I was giving the presentation. Let me see. A second here.
Well, thank you, Sebastian. Really, really informative presentation. Thank you again for the wealth of information. And that brings us to the end of the presentation. We appreciate you taking the time to join us and how you found these insights valuable. We'll go into Q&A in just 1 minute. Just wanted to mention, if you're looking to enhance your marketing strategy, Web2Med is here to help with your website SEO, email marketing, social media strategies. And if you want to offer the science-backed cellular health solutions, T Sciences has you covered with their industry-leading telomerase activation products designed for efficiency, safety, and superior patient outcomes. And for more information or to get in touch, our contact details are right here on the screen. You'll get a follow-up email also from our companies with those links. And like Sebastian mentioned, their special offer and our special offer as well. And again, thanks for attending to everybody. We look forward to helping you grow your longevity focused practice. And I think we have a few minutes to take some questions. Sebastian, there is a number of them. I think one that would be worth addressing, if you want to take this one, how can we measure our telomeres?
Yeah, of course. So that was one thing I was going to get into. That's a good question. So there's a couple options here. There's really three companies that we've kind of looked at over the course of time. Two of them do nothing but strictly specialize in telomere testing, which we really like. One of them is LifeLink out of Spain. The other one is Repeat Diagnostics out of Vancouver. And then, of course, there's also True Diagnostics, the epigenetics testing company here in the US. A little bit of difference with True Diagnostics and the fact that they obviously cover, they're more of a specialization looking at DNA methylation, using an algorithm with DNA methylation to determine what they determine to be your telomere length age. It's not a direct measurement of actually measuring the telomere, but it's becoming more and more accurate over time as they gather data. So it is a great test. It's very accessible. But if you're looking to measure the telomere directly just on its own in the actual sample that you're submitting to get a fairly, what I consider a fairly accurate average, probably the most accurate average for telomere length that you're going to be able to find as of this day and time, you would look at Repeat Diagnostics or LifeLink. They're both available to be receiving their test in the US. LifeLink might be a little bit easier for you if you have a patient who's wanting to get the kit. You can actually send them to their website. I'm going to give you information in an email follow-up after we're done with the webinar. You're going to have access to links for the test for all the companies there. So you have some options out there, and I would take advantage. And another thing is on telomere testing, you only need to do it once a year, really. Telomeres are malleable, like we talked about. They're going to go up and down throughout the year slightly. So if you have a high level of stress, or let's just say you broke your leg and you're healing, your telomeres are going to drop that year. You're going to be for sure to show that there's something going on in the body that is requiring recovery or requiring something to help combat off certain things with the immune. So really, my recommendation to anybody that can remember this is, if you're going to go into telomere testing, especially if you're doing the blood test, give yourself 24 hours of no high intensity activity. Because what we don't want to do is release, something like new stem cell proliferation, things like that. You want to allow the body to kind of get back to its normal state. So just take a normal day, a normal 24 hours of just your day-to-day living, and then you do your test, and then go back to your standard activity. There's also one about
Oh, sorry, Sebastian, go ahead.
So there's also one about looking at the senescent T cells and naive T cells. So that one is a little bit more specialized. Those markers that I showed you are not commercially available, but we do offer a specialized immune panel. Because we have the IRB with UCLA, we can get you the panel specifically for that immune test. When I talked about that QPS study that went over immune progress and how we did in that double-blinded study, what we did to achieve those results, I can get you that panel.
I've seen some attendees raise their hands. Please put your questions in the Q&A section in Zoom. You should see that, or you can do it on our live stream on YouTube. Put those questions in and we'll try to answer them. And if we won't get to all of the questions, we'll definitely follow up with each of you individually that we don't get to. All right. One more question here. For how long we need to take it? I think that's a really, really good question.
Yeah, absolutely. So really there's two sides to that question. Theoretically, you're dealing with a supplement here. Remember, TA65, I don't know if I touched on the half-life. It has a half-life of 10 to 12 hours in the bloodstream. So when you looked at our PK level studies, 10 to 12 hours, the Cmax is around 4 to 6 hours in blood. So really, QD dosing, once a day is perfect. We thought BID was going to be more beneficial, but really over the course of the time looking at data, we saw more significant results, better results, because TA65 more is not always better. So we'll talk about how long and dosing in this question together. So I'm kind of tying those in together since we're talking about this in general. You would take it daily for really as long as you're willing and able to stay on it. It's just like if you were to take your multivitamin to supplement your food nutrition, you're receiving that obviously daily as you go along. And then if you stop, the receipt of that supplementation, it ceases. And I think that over the course of time, if you want to, if some people can't stay on something forever, I get it. So what I think is if you're going to go from a therapeutic dose standpoint, I always try to encourage people to, at a minimum, be on it 6 months. When you're making changes at the cellular level, this is a very mild transient telomerase activation supplement. The changes are not going to happen overnight. The cell needs time to actually receive and actually start making those changes. 6 months is where we like to see people really, at least give it a shot. Ideally, because you're only going to telomere test for once a year, the most ideal therapeutic term to be taking it is a year. Do you lose your effects of TA65 when you stop taking it? Not necessarily. If you're going to maintain your lifestyle as you go on and stay healthy, what you gained during that process, let's just say, for example, in that year of taking TA65 doesn't just disappear overnight. You have the opportunity to maintain that telomere length. And you can even, keep that on longer. You can enhance it slightly, with other things. But overall, TA65 is kind of hitting the bullseye of keeping that telomere length good for you. So, at the end of the day, the better you take care of yourself, the better the results. And when it comes down to dosing, we talked about 3 different doses, the 100, 250, and 500 unit. Units are just a sort of a term. The milligrams kind of vary between dividing it by 10 or a little more depending on which product it is. But ultimately, to me, where are you going to start a patient? The sweetheart dose, kind of the 80-20 rule of the population we've seen in response to TA65 is the 250 unit. It's the most studied dose TA Sciences has had. It's the dose we started with on the market in 2007. And we also sell that 500 unit dose, which is in tablet form. You can split those. They're scored. You can split those to be a 2-day, a dose that can last 2 days on a single tablet to save a little more money. And then there are a smaller form of the population that can do well on telomere lengthening on the 100 unit, and they respond very well to it. From an immune standpoint, the 100 unit, the lowest dose, seemed to be just as effective, if not just slightly below the higher doses. So just know this, there is a sweet spot for everybody. Telomere testing kind of helps you determine that. The immune panel really helps you determine that. See if you're moving those senescent cell markers down and increasing those naive T cell markers up, increasing those numbers. That will let you know if TA65 is really working for that person, if there's enough molecule in the blood tissue levels. So that's kind of the main piece there.
Let me answer one of the questions on the Web2Med side. And in the meantime, maybe Sebastian, you can take a look. We have a lot of questions that came in. Maybe pick a couple that would be the most interesting to everybody. And in the meantime, I'll answer the question, what about Google Ads? Since we didn't cover them, I think Google Ads are great, but they can get expensive really quick. We do have practices that do focus on search engine optimization, Google Ads, social media, email marketing, all of the different strategies. And we do provide that as a service as well, managing, setting it up. We do run into some issues, however, with these type of practices. If you do offer PRP, stem cells, exosomes, Wharton's jelly, all of these products will make you ineligible to run ads at all. Not just for those products, but any ads on your website if you have any mention of biologics. So that's one potential area. There are also some other restrictions because it is a medical website, so it's a little bit maybe not more complicated, but you have to know your way around it. recommend professional looking at that knows how to set it up. And a lot of times with Google Ads, we look at campaigns that are simply not performing because they're missing certain components. So you really have to be skilled at running these Google Ads campaigns and a paid ads really in order to maximize the cost per conversion, meaning how much you pay for that patient coming in to your office at the end of the day. I think it's hugely important because again, otherwise it gets really expensive real quick and without even monitoring that, which we've seen some practices don't do. They're not even know what they're getting out of it. That's a really tough one. Sebastian, have you had a chance to look at the list? It's a really long one. Not sure if there's a question or a couple you want to cover.
Yeah, I think we can do one or two more here, and I know we'll wrap it up, not to keep everybody for the night. There was a question about side effects of having too long telomeres, too long of telomeres. If you can achieve too long of telomeres, you are a very special top 1% individual in the world. It's actually, when you think about the day-to-day onslaught of just life, you're constantly going through telomere degradation. There's a slow degradation. Anything you do at TA65 is not like stacking Legos where you just keep putting one block on top of the other and it's just going to keep building like that. When we looked at sheltering in that slide and I showed you the TTA G amino acid sequence, that's not just going to keep building until the point where they're so long that there's a problem. You'd be lucky to over the course. I'll give you an example. I'll use myself, N of 1, and this is also through Dr. Raphael's data. When I've seen him do presentations many times, he's been keeping data on patients who've been on the product for 15 years. He's had some people on it for a long time, and he's recorded it the whole way. I've been on it about 10 years. At my baseline, I've been tested 6 times in 10 years. At my baseline for telomere length, I improved in those 10 years? I have actually I improved my first 2 tests, and then on my third test, I dropped slightly, and then I went back to a little bit of improvement to where I was back to where I started, and COVID hit, and I got tested after that, and I did get COVID, I think twice. It was very mild for me. It affected my telomere length. My telomere length went down. I was able to recover every single bit of that. On my final test, I actually just did it back in 2024, last year in the summer, just a little less than a year ago. So I'm due for one in August or September this year. But if you look at that, I'm now, I think I started taking TA65 when I was 33, 34. I'm 45 now, and my telomere average length is just about the same as it was 10 to 11 years ago. Now, some people are going to say, well, what's the big deal in that? The big deal is that had I done nothing, I would have had consistent telomere degradation, whether some years be faster or bigger dips than others. But I have maintained my biological age as I chronologically aged older. So, a big factor there for me. And on the other side of that, I get tested on the immune, and I have rebuilt my naive T cell reserve significantly. So I have had a wonderful improvement over the course of time. So, it's a moving average. I think the best analogy I heard is think of it as your healthcare 401k or your health, your health 401k for your body. You're investing in it. You're not going to get results overnight. This is about a process of taking care of yourself for the long term, and that you want that return to happen over time. And that's kind of what the deal is with TA65.
Do we have time for maybe one more or
Yes, this is an interesting one. This actually just popped in here, I believe. They heard that hair color reverses with TA65. Yes. Now, that is not what it's intended for. There are a couple, I'll touch on the last anecdotal things here and we can wrap it up. In very few people, I have actually had reports of people saying my hair actually returned to its normal color. It started growing back. My grays actually went back to brown or whatever. It has not happened to me. I also have 2 young kids, so don't think that TA65 is going to reverse your hair color because I'm turning gray pretty quickly in that regard. But But no, overall, I mean, there's been some fantastic feedback on anecdotal things. I'll give you one thing that's actually not anecdotal. It's been proven in published clinical data and actually double-blinded published clinical data. One of the things that a lot of people give us feedback on is improvement in eyesight. And it really is specifically tied to early onset age-related macular degeneration. So those of you that have heard presentations in the past hear about this often. That was in a dry study, so it was caught early on, but in 6 months, they showed reversal on a 500-unit dose in that small patient cohort. Double-blinded, done by an ophthalmologist, independent of TA Sciences. He published his data in Clinical Ophthalmology. It was a wonderful study. We got a lot of interest from that. We also, people get improvements in skin from the oral. So systemically, there's been shown improvements in skin. So we're looking at things like brown spot and liver spot reduction, et cetera, on the skin by being on TA65. There's another thing we know that it moves the markers on cardiovascular because a lot of the data that we did in our published studies looked at cardiovascular markers. And in the majority of the studies that carried it, all the cardiovascular markers improved somewhat. Then on our most recent double-blinded study, we didn't touch on this one, but we looked at post-MI patients, so post-myocardial infarction. They had to have an event within 6 months or less to be in the study. And we did a wonderful results on showing hsCRP reduction of 62.1% and TMB lymphocytes improving significantly. So we reduced inflammation and we improved the immune system. And there was a zero reoccurrence of events in the TA65 group and 0 deaths. So that shows you right there. Whereas in the placebo, there was actually death and reoccurrence of events. Obviously they had a bunch of issues in regards to inflammation. Immune was not as strong. So, hormone as well. They see a lot of improvements with hormone markers. This is not intended to be used for hormone treatment per se, but it's a wonderful complement to those doing VHRT. So just a couple things to touch on there. So people talk about improved cognitive recall, improved libido. And lastly, I'll send this in a link to wrap it up. There are a lot of benefits to mild telomerase activation and improving neurodegenerative issues. There are two studies now that just came out. One was a mouse model. They actually used TA65 in it to show the upregulation of TERT helped reverse some of the neurocognitive disorders in the mice and showed brain activity improve and everything else. And then there's another one that went just into TERT in regards to the effects of improving neuro overall. So I'll let you take a look at those as well. I think they're very interesting to read. And it just goes to show that we've been around a long time. The product itself works, but the science of telomerase activation without any products involved is becoming more prominent in regards to health improvements, and it's becoming much more important as the data unfolds in regards to looking at telomeres and keeping them healthy.
Well, thank you, Sebastian. Really informative. I learned a few new things as well myself. And thanks everybody for attending. Thank you for all the wonderful questions. If we haven't gotten to all of them, we'll answer those individually and have a good night. And again, thank you for attending.
Thank you, Philip. Thanks, everybody.